Hey guys, it's Charlene. I'm super excited for today's video. I'm going to be sharing with you 5 fun ways to use the new watercolor pencils from the Distress line. Now these come in 3 sets. I ordered set 1, and in each of the 3 sets there are 12 pencils. What I like about this is that there is a variety of colors. So if you only order 1 set, you can still color in multiple different kinds of images. And you can see the pencils have this wrapper on them, but other than that, they are woodless. They are highly pigmented. You can see they're not terribly sharp when you get them, so all you need to use is a little pencil sharpener if you want to have your pencils sharpened. And stick around till the end of this video. I'm going to show you a really fun way to use those pencil shavings at the very end. So the first fun way to use these watercolor pencils is to color on top of embossed images. So you can see I have come in here with the Villainous Potion, and I'm just going around and I'm coloring all of the petals of the flower. Now I found that it works best to do kind of small little circle motions, but you'll want to play around and see what works best for you. What works for me might not work best for you. So once I get all of those petals colored with a all kind of once over, then I went back in and I added shading where I thought I needed it. And so I kind of just added another layer of color there. Now I've got my water brush and I'm just going in and running over the color, and it's amazing how easy this blends out. Now, I found this works really well on flower petals if you actually start at the lightest side, so at the tips of the petals, and then bring the water down into where you want to shade. It's kind of counterintuitive, but I tried it both ways and I thought it worked better that way. Now, another way you can use these pencils is by actually putting your paintbrush or your water brush, whatever you're using, directly on the tip of the pencil and rubbing it around. You are going to get some really vibrant color there. So that's what I did. I went back in and I used my water brush on the tip of the pencil in order to get some more of that color for shading. Now I'm coloring in the leaves, and for the leaves I'm using peeled paint. This is not the color I would probably pick for leaves if I had all of the colors, but like I said, it's nice because each set does include a variety of colors. So I used the peeled paint for my leaves and they came out wonderful. I really like how they look, a very nice soft color. So again, I did a once over with those colored pencils, and then I'm coming in with the water brush and I'm going all the way around, and now I'm taking some from the tip of the pencil to add some shading here and there. What's fun about these embossed images is that once you're done coloring, you can take your paper and fit it back into your embossing folder. Just kind of fits in there like a puzzle piece, and then you can run it back through your die cut machine again to crisp up all the edges, and it just looks gorgeous. I love, love, love how this looks. So the next way that you can use your Distress watercolored pencils is by coloring onto stamped images. You do want to make sure that you have a watercolor friendly ink. I'm using the Picket Black Hybrid ink, which is great for watercoloring and for Copic marker coloring. So I use it all the time, and I have stamped out the stamp that coordinates with that embossing folder. This whole set is from Altenew, and I'll link down below to everything that I'm using if you have any questions. So for this one, I am using Picked Raspberry, and again going through adding a once over all over of color to all the petals, and then I'm going to go back in and add an extra layer where I think that shading should be. Now for this example, I am using black ink, but you also could stamp out in a water reactive, very light gray ink, and then you could do some no line watercoloring. Essentially, you would color in the whole image and then use your water brush or your paintbrush to blend everything out. You also could stamp with embossing ink and heat emboss in clear or white or black, and all of those are going to give you completely different looks. They all will turn out really beautiful. I love how versatile this all is. Now, I'm sure some of you are asking what's so special about the Distress watercolor pencils versus other watercolor pencils on the market. Well, to be honest, I don't know how they compare in quality. This is actually my very first set of watercolor pencils. I have thought about ordering them many times, and it wasn't until I saw that the Distress line came out with some that I jumped on the bandwagon. And the reason is because I know the colors, and I think that's the biggest advantage to the Distress ink watercolor pencils is that the colors match the ink colors. So if you have any of the Distress line of products, if you have spray stains, you have inks, you have oxides, whatever you have, these are going to color coordinate. And I love that. I love that I can do watercolor and have it match ink blending that I've done on a background. I think that is awesome. So I'm definitely going to be ordering the other two sets at some point here because I want to have all of the colors. But again, you don't need them all if you don't want them. You can certainly start out with one set just to try them out. And I like that as well. I like that you don't have to buy all of them. You can just purchase one to see if it's something that you would really like. Now I've gone in here with the picked raspberry and the peeled paint on this image, and I love how it turned out. You could leave it like this, but you also, if you have the coordinating embossing folder to a stamped image, you can then line up your stamp on the inside of the embossing folder just so that it fits all the way around, and then you can go ahead and run it through your die cut machine. Now I did go ahead and spritz the paper once before I closed it up and put it through the die cutting machine, and that was just to help keep my paper from tearing. The third way that you can use watercolor pencils is by coloring directly on your stamp. I know this sounds crazy, but it creates probably my favorite outcome. I really love how this looks. So all you need is some water, and then you're going to just dab your pencil into the water and then color a section of your stamp and stamp it onto your paper. Now this you really do need a stamp positioner for. It's going to be kind of hard if you're trying to do this on an acrylic block. Not impossible, but certainly more easy if you are using a stamp positioner. So you can see I have the salty ocean here, and you're just dipping it in the water, coloring a section on, closing the door, and stamping it down. Now there are other ways that you can achieve this effect. You could spritz your stamp with water and then color onto it and then stamp it on your platform. You also could color your entire image, and then once you're completely done, spritz the stamp and stamp the whole thing. Now I found that doing it this way actually gave me the most vibrant color, and it also helped me have a little bit more control because I could see if there was too much water or too little water and gauge how much water I needed to put on my pencil in order to get the best effect. The fun thing about this is you can get a 2-for-1. So I spritzed the whole image with water once I was done, and then I stamped again to get a second generation stamping. And you can see it's lighter, but still beautiful. So depending on the look you're going for, you could use one or the other. Now you could leave it as is, or you can go in with your water brush or your paintbrush and then paint everything in. All you have to do is run it over, and it creates this beautiful effect where you have the darker color as the outline where the stamp lines were, but then you have filled in the entirety of the image with the color. I think this is by far my favorite way to use the watercolor pencils. I just love how it looks. I think it's so pretty with the dark areas and the light areas, and it almost looks like no line coloring, but it still has a lot of definition, which I am by no means an artist, a fine artist, or anything like that. I could not paint something like this freehand, so I love the way it looks with the stamped image like this. I love this so much. I did go ahead and off camera do one with the picked raspberry as well. So now I'm going to show you another way to use your distress watercolor pencils. This is the fourth way, and it is to color through a stencil. You could do this with a regular stencil, or you can do it with a layering stencil. And you can see I'm going to also show you can put it into a coordinating embossing folder. So this time I wanted to make sure that it was in the right spot so that my paper didn't hang out of the embossing folder when I was done. Now, starting out here with the bottom layer, now these are the stems, and they are a really tiny space. So I went ahead and used the tip of the watercolor pencil, got it wet with my water brush, and then ran it through the stencil. Now if you are using a layering stencil, you want to make sure to dry off between each layer because you don't want to smudge your watercolor around. So you can see for this next layer, for the larger spaces, I colored directly into those spaces, and then I ran over everything with my water brush. So for the third layer, going to do the same thing, color directly into the spaces, and then run over everything with my water brush. This is a really interesting technique. It really looks freehand, like you painted these when you're all done. This is by far the most loose and natural watercoloring look I have seen with watercolor pencils. I think it looks really amazing, so I'm glad I tried this. So now I'm going to come in with the first layer of the petals. For this, I'm using Fired Brick, which is not normally a color that I would pick to do flowers, but I was sort of forced to just use the colors I had. So this was a reminder to me, and maybe it'll be helpful to you too. You don't always have to go by the names of your inks or your watercolor pencils in this case. So Fired Brick makes a lovely shade for a flower. You can see, look at that gorgeous, gorgeous color. And I love so much that this is so quick and simple and easy. You can see I am wiping off the stencil as well in between each layer. And that's because I don't want any residual water or spots to get on the remainder of my card. And it's fine because ultimately I am going to die cut all of these out because I have the coordinating die cut. But if I was doing a one layer card, I'd want to make sure that I didn't get any ink spots anywhere else on my card. So look how beautiful this looks. It's all coming together, and I'm going to add those yellow centers, and look at that. Doesn't that look gorgeous, you guys? I feel like it really looks like I painted that, and I love how that came out. So like I said, again, if you have the coordinating embossing folder for something, you can pop it right in there and run it through your die cutting machine. So for the fifth and final way you can use these, you can create really easy flecks, and you don't have to worry about it going everywhere. You don't have to get out a splat box or something like that. And it will coordinate with everything, and it's like very little mess. I love this. All you do is take your paintbrush or your water brush and get the tip of your pencil wet and just flick it onto your paper. That's it. Now here I also used some salvage patina with that salty ocean. The salvage patina did not show up as well as the salty ocean, so I would say you probably want to use darker colors when you're doing this technique. But it's just a fun way to create a quick and simple background to put your beautiful watercolored images on. So again, I'm going back through here. These are the embossed images that I then colored and painted. There's the stamped and colored image. And here are the ones where I drew directly on the stamp, and you can see those by far are my favorite. And then lastly was the one where I colored through the stencil. Here I just wanted to give you a sense of what these would look like on a card front. I think this would make a beautiful card. And so now for the bonus way to use this. I have a piece of watercolor paper. I have spritzed it with water, and I'm using those pencil shavings from when I sharpened my pencil. And then I just have a flathead paintbrush, and I'm just going to paint back and forth until I get it all mixed in and all the way across my paper. There are so many ways you could use those pencil shavings, so definitely hang on to them and think about fun mixed media applications you could use them for. But I love this technique because it's going to give you a piece of watercolor paper that matches your distress line. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found some useful tips and tricks today, and I hope you try out these new watercolor pencils. They are a lot of fun. Please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell so I can continue bringing you more crafty content in the future. Until next time, happy crafting!